Welcome to the Mom Needs a Moment podcast. We're your hosts, Chrissy
and Cindy,
co-founders of Her Health Collective.
We are two moms obsessed with revolutionizing the way moms take care of themselves. We are so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Sharon Shelton offers a calm and peaceful energy to the world around her. As a certified professional coach and a certified mindfulness teacher, Sharon holds her clients accountable with a casual, engaged, and encouraging approach. She helps her clients close the gap between where they are and where they want to be in their life. Prior to the life she currently lives, Sharon overcame alcoholism and has maintained her sobriety for over 25 years. She went on to rebuild her career to become a VP of a global software company, created a loving and supportive community with over 3,800 members, married the love of her life, and started her own heart-centered business. When working with clients, Sharon incorporates her extensive experience, knowledge, and practices into a unique, proven, science-backed, step-by-step model for living fully, focused on intention and alignment and mindfulness. She speaks with us on the topic of spirituality in this episode. Sharon explains the differences between spirituality and religion, the connection between spirituality and mindfulness, and offers suggestions on how to build a more spiritual life. We hope you enjoy.
It's actually such a great transition into the question that I'm interested to ask you right now. You had mentioned the fingers pointing at the moon, and you just happened to reference different religions, which are based on spirituality in one form or another. So my next question is actually going to be centered around spirituality and spiritual growth. Sharon, not only have you received your bachelor's and master's degrees in marketing, but you've also gone on to become an ordained interfaith minister, certified professional coach, and certified mindfulness teacher. You mentioned some of this earlier in our Get to Know You 2-minute segment. We will discuss your work with mindfulness and your life coaching in just a few minutes in more detail. But right now, let's explore your background as an ordained interfaith, interspiritual minister. You are a graduate of One Spirit Learning Alliance in New York City. Their website states that once you graduate, you will be able to support others on their journey of spiritual exploration and growth. It also states that spiritual practice is the key to developing inner spatialness and our capacity to maintain a centered presence. Will you please discuss spirituality in more detail with all of us? Many people get this confused with religion, and many people possibly have turned away from practices because of personal experiences with religion or world events that have been centered on the conflicting religious beliefs. So can you touch on spirituality in more detail? How do we find it? What exactly is it? What's the difference between that and religion?
That's a big question. Now, obviously, I can only speak from my own perspective, but again, if we go back to that fingers pointing at the moon analogy, I think spirituality is really the practice of recognizing and moving from our moonness, you know what I mean? Moving from that space where religion, again, are the pointers, are the vehicles, are the tools that can help us to do that. So in some ways, spirituality does not need religion in that way, right? Because the moon exists regardless of whether the fingers are pointing at it. In the same way, our own inherent nature, as our own inherent Buddha nature, our own inherent Christ nature, or our own inherent Christian, whatever it is, our own inherent nature does not change because we have anxiety. It doesn't change because we've yelled at our kid. It doesn't change. And that's beautiful. Our luminosity does not change whether we recognize it or not. It just waits there patiently for us to recognize it. And so I think spirituality is really the exploration of who we are underneath all the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves.
So that internal knowing.
Yes. And however you do that, for some, it's really immersing themselves in nature, For some, it's community. It's really sensing into that belonging. For some, it could be dance. So it could be chanting. It could be singing. like gospel music, or, there could be many different ways of doing it. And so that's not to say that religion isn't beautiful for many reasons, but I think it causes quite a bit of suffering when people over identify with religion and the dogma of the different religions and lose sight of what the religions are trying to point to. And, I grew up in the Baptist church, and I was fascinated by the teachings of Jesus, but I couldn't reconcile the rest of it. So I kind of focused on the teachings of Jesus. And I said, that feels resonant. And then I sort of drifted away because of all the other stuff in dogma and all the other things. And what this immersion in Buddhist philosophy has done for me is I've kind of come back to the teachings of Jesus, because that's essentially what he was saying from my perspective, So it's not like you have to set a religion down or anything, but the invitation is to develop a practice that supports you in making contact with the true essence of who you are, whatever that is for you. Because when you do that, what naturally arises, what we make contact with, is our natural sense of belonging to each other. We make contact with our natural open-heartedness and our compassion and creativity and courage and all those things we're grasping after that we already are, that we're trying so hard to be, that we already are. And the practice is just to remove the blocks to the awareness of that. So whatever does that for you, go for it.
Well, when you were in the program at One Spirit Learning Alliance, you were immersed in spiritual practice and experienced the richness and value of the diversity of practices offered throughout the world. So you'd mentioned Hinduism and Buddhism, but based on all that you've learned about practices around the world and your own personal experiences, and based on what you have just said to us, like seeking that inner knowing and finding more about who you are at your deepest self, how does a person build a more spiritual life? And how does this intersect with being more mindful?
That's a good question. So how do you begin?
Because you were talking about it. You were talking about becoming more true to you, finding that inner knowing, that deepest part of yourself. And many people might be like, great, but what do I do to get there? So if you could guide us a little bit, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. I think reading certain books like those I threw out, and there's several really good books, whether they be, hard copy books or soft copy books or Audible books. I'm a big fan of Audible. There's so much really good content that can provide some scaffolding for the exploration, that can provide some context for sort of this exploration. And so, I would start by perhaps picking up a book or two, or just one book, and focusing on that one book, and then journaling. And I see journaling as sort of a conversation with yourself. And so carving out some time to actually journal what's coming up. I had a teacher and a coach and therapist all along the way to help me to process, connect dots, and tabulate all that was coming up. So I would say to begin reading books that speak about particularly mindfulness and compassion, because that speaks to the moon and not focusing so much on the fingers. And then I would perhaps journal, carve out some time to journal. I would find community, even if you can't find community in person. I have fallen in love with people who I have never made physical contact with because Zoom. And you could have never told me before the pandemic that I would be doing most of my work through Zoom. I would have said, there's no way, because there's no way you can make a connection with somebody over Zoom. Well, when I had no choice, and the technology has improved so much to that degree, I had no choice, and other people had no choice. I'm now realizing that that is an extraordinarily effective way to find community. It's a beautiful way to find community, especially for busy folks like moms who don't necessarily have time to go out and meet with folks all the time. But perhaps you can carve out an hour a week to hop on a Zoom with other folks who are asking these same questions. That's what's so beautiful about Cloud Sangha. So many people that I work with talk about how lonely they are, particularly women, how lonely they are. And we're all lonely. So let's be lonely together, so find each other. And now it's easier than ever to find like-minded folks who are asking these same questions. So I think the combination of study, through reading, and journaling, kind of engaging in this conversation with yourself, and then community, whatever that looks like for you.
This episode is sponsored by Her Circle, the supportive and welcoming community for moms created by Her Health Collective.
Her Circle is a welcoming and supportive community for moms who are passionate about making change for themselves, their families, the community, and the world. Together, this village of women are revolutionizing the way moms take care of themselves.
From an active, private online community and the incredible daily chats hosted there, to our many virtual gatherings, including support groups, Mom's Night Out, volunteer opportunities, book club, family adventures, coffee chats, and so much more. We love providing moms the chance to connect and create authentic relationships with one another.
The network of experts in Her Circle are a phenomenal resource and provide great learning experiences for moms on topics ranging from women's health to parenting. We cover the issues that matter to moms the most, from virtual expert Q&As to one-on-one Wellness Minute consultations and support groups. We are committed to getting moms in front of the information, experts, and support they need most.
To learn more about Her Circle, head to www.herhealthcollective.com/her-circle. We have a limited number of spaces and the doors only open a few times a year. So be sure to add your name to the no obligation waitlist so you are the first to know when the doors officially reopen.
I think those three things, and then engaging in some regular practice, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, because you asked about the connection between spirituality and mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Mindfulness is essentially about paying attention to what's arising for you in the moment without judgment. That's really all it is. And whether you do that by just focusing on the breath, the in and out breath, because when you're focusing on the breath, you're not focusing on, what's happening tomorrow or what happened yesterday. You're just here and you notice. So you'll notice thought, you'll notice sensation, you'll notice emotion. And when the mind is not so preoccupied with mental proliferation, there's no chance, there's no information that can come through because your mind is so busy. So mindfulness is about cultivating a sense of spaciousness so that you can pay attention to your life in a different way without your story about your life, but you can pay attention to your actual life, not your story about your life. And in doing that, the more you do that, your natural wisdom arises in that spaciousness. And then you'll get the information that you need. You may not like it. It may be different than the identity that you've created or whatever, but your inherent wisdom will come through in spaciousness. It's harder to recognize your wisdom if your mind is so busy telling yourself you're not good enough, you're not thin enough, you're not this enough, you're not that enough. It has no space to come through. And then you're just in reactivity mode, just trying to not suffer. You get in this whole cycle of suffering, and then now I just need a drink.
That's so true. And I think one of the key pieces that you said in there, which is also one of the hardest, is to sit and have no judgment on what comes through.
That is remember what I said earlier. I said, but we get to cultivate these qualities that support us. Patience is a quality that we need to cultivate. Non-judgment is a quality. Self-compassion is a quality. Equanimity is a quality. And we don't just get these qualities. We develop them. We cultivate them by using the experiences in our life to do that exercise, right? So, because what we'll notice sometimes when we make a decision to say, okay, this makes sense. I think I want to be more mindful. I think I want to be more present in my life. So you start to really be with what is. And then you notice some really difficult stuff. You notice a lot of self-judgment. You notice some grief. You notice some resentment. You notice some stuff. And then that's where the practice really is. That's already there anyway. It's not like because we don't recognize it's there, it's not there. It just comes out sideways if we don't meet it with some compassion. And then we soften. Tara Brach has a tool called RAIN, which I'm sure you may have heard of. It's an acronym for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. If we find material that's difficult, it's a way of meeting difficult emotions with some spaciousness, with some curiosity, with some skillfulness, and with tons of self-compassion. So the point of spiritual practice is not to make everything rosy and happy and pleasant all the time, because that's just not the nature of life. But I think the point of spiritual practice perhaps is to meet life from who we inherently are, to meet whatever is arriving. So to not see ourselves as the waves, but to see ourselves as the ocean,
Yeah,
out of
that's a
which the
great.
waves are coming, right? And that we're
Yeah.
so often identifying with the waves, with the neuroses, or with our patterns of, performing, or, with this person not doing, this human not behaving the way we want this human to behave. We're so identified with the waves instead of identifying with the ocean. And from our oceanness, we can see that, oh, it's all impermanent and it's not even personal. It's just life doing life. So how can I meet life as it's unfolding in a way that doesn't propagate suffering? And I think that's what spirituality and spiritual practice can do. And then we move through the world from that space. And so our conversations are different. Our relationships are different. Ultimately, our work is different. Our laws are different. I think that's the work. I think that's the work right now for all of us.
Right. So if a person is having an identity crisis, let's say in midlife, people usually do. That's the time of life where they've had their experiences. They're starting to do all the judgment on themselves. And we have a lot of listeners that are moms that might be in a place in their life where they are questioning their identity.
Yeah.
How can a person walk this path and find their clarity? Is it by being mindful? Is it by doing all of the things that you've just talked about? Would that be what would suit them best?
Yeah, I think that would be a good start. But one thing I also want to say too, because I've been working with so many women in midlife, hundreds of women in midlife, tons of moms at different stages of momming, even though they're in midlife, they're in different stages of momming. And I can tell you that the experience of feeling a bit lost or questioning, is this authentically me, or what is authentically me, or that is so common. So it's not a personal thing. It's not like there's something wrong with me because I'm having this identity crisis. It's a beautiful thing in a way, because it's almost as if a part of you in that feeling of crisis, there's a part of you that's sort of calling you back home, right? What do I do then is your question, right? And again, I think it just comes back to, okay, well, let me see if I can find some scaffolding, some, framework that I can work within that can perhaps guide me through a set of questions, or that can perhaps, I can contemplate as I'm taking a walk, passage in a book, and then write about it. And then I can't emphasize the community piece enough. I used to be this rugged individualist. I was raised that way. Make sure you don't depend on anybody. Make sure you're self-sufficient. Make sure you are always in control. And I prided myself on that in a lot of ways. And what I realized over the years is that, number one, that makes no sense because we're all inherently interdependent on each other, right? Number two, it's kind of like we're all part of one body. So it makes no sense for me to feel like I can wake up on my own. And I don't know if I'm being clear, but I guess what I'm saying is that the community piece, and indigenous cultures knew this, the community piece is not optional if we're going to do this work. The community piece is not optional if we're going to do this work, because then it just becomes more of an intellectual exercise more than anything else. We need community, whatever that looks like for you. And so I would emphasize that if moms are feeling in this space of uncertainty and vulnerability, that's what I would do. Pick up a book, carve out some time, go to a cafe, get a new journal, start writing straight from your heart. Start writing with radical curiosity. Not with thinking you know the answer, but with radical curiosity and compassion for whatever's coming up. And then get support, whether it's a coach or a therapist, and then find community where you can kind of continuously engage in this journey.
Absolutely. That community piece is so important. It's large part why Cindy and I founded Her Health Collective.
That's why the Her Collective is so incredible.
Yeah, it's close to our heart. Sharon, if you could sit down in a room full of women eager to learn from you, which I happen to know you do quite frequently because I've been in that room and learned from you. But if you could only come with one parting lesson, one takeaway, what would you say to them?
We would like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon subscribers. Your support truly means the world to us. Thanks to you, we are able to continue the weekly production of Mama Needs a Moment and getting this valuable information from these incredible guests out to you, our listeners. This final question has been recorded as a mini bonus episode and is available for our Patreon subscribers to go listen to right now. So be sure to log in to your Patreon account and have a listen. Coming up next, you'll hear Sharon's special offer to Mama Needs a Moment listeners and our 3 takeaways.
Along these lines, I've actually created a self-study program called Women Thriving in Midlife. And it's chock full. It has, about 20 hours of videos. And I kind of poured all of this into that program. I love this community and I wanted to offer it to this community. And I've created a discount code for 50% off of this particular program. It's normally $99 and it's just 50% off for the community. And the coupon code is HER with all caps, HER. If you go to L2YL.net, so listen to your life, sort of an acronym for listen to your life, L2YL.net, it'll take you to the course page and you can put that coupon code in. And, we talked about how to get started. This might be a great place to get started, to hear me kind of, go on and on about some of this stuff. And then there's some exercises in there that can prompt you to really do some of this inquiry. So I invite you to take advantage of that.
Oh, sign me up. Also, is that your license plate? Do you have your license plate?
That is my license plate. How did you know that?
Because it sounded like one that would be a license plate.
And I was like, oh my God, that totally freaked me out.
Stalker.
That is my license plate. Stalker. Wait a minute. I thought that was Cindy behind me. Yes, that is my license plate. That's hilarious.
Oh, I love it. It's so great.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If you haven't had a chance to hear episode 75 with Sharon, it's a great listen, and we would highly recommend it. As I've revisited our conversation with Sharon in episode 75 and this episode 76, I truly feel that they have been life-changing for me. Each time I listen, there's something that opens my eyes a bit more. Here are our 3 takeaways from this episode with Sharon. Number 1, we asked Sharon to share more about spirituality. We wanted to learn more about it and the difference between spirituality and religion. In the previous episode, Sharon used an analogy of fingers pointing at the moon. She said, quote, "The moon is actually our true nature, that we are all inherently good and inherently free. There are all of these things that are covering up our awareness of who we truly are, which is the stories, all the wounds, all the trauma. So our true nature is the moon, shining brightly, always there. The fingers pointing at the moon are the different teachings and books and different religions that we encounter." When explaining the difference between spirituality and religion, Sharon referred back to this fingers pointing at the moon analogy, and she explained that spirituality is really the practice of recognizing and living from our moonness, or who we really are, underneath all the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. Whereas religion are the pointers or the fingers that serve as one of the vehicles or tools that can help us to do that. She went on to say, quote, "I think religion causes quite a bit of suffering when people over-identify with religion and the dogma of the religion. This can cause individuals to lose sight of what the religions are trying to point to or help us discover, which is our true nature underneath all the stories, wounds, and trauma." Number 2, deepening our practice of spirituality and mindfulness is an invitation. Sharon said the invitation is to develop a practice that supports you in making contact with the true essence of who you are, whatever that is for you. When we do that, we make contact with our natural open-heartedness and our compassion and creativity and courage and all those things we may be grasping after that we already are. And the practice is just to remove the blocks to the awareness of that. So whatever does that for you, she recommends to go for it. She also made a point in reminding us that we get to cultivate these qualities that support us. For example, patience, non-judgment, self-compassion are all qualities that we cultivate. Sharon said, quote, "We don't just get these qualities, we develop them. We cultivate them by using the experiences in our life to do that exercise." Number 3, We asked Sharon what we can do in order to find that inner knowing, that deepest part of ourselves. We can foster the finding of the deepest part of ourselves through a combination of study reading, which includes books like the ones she had mentioned in our previous episode, and perhaps journaling, where you're actually processing what you've read and what you're learning through a conversation with yourself. She said engaging in some regular practice, even if it's 5 minutes a day, where you can quiet your mind and pay attention to what's arising for you in the moment without judgment. She emphasized the importance of community, whatever that looks like for you. Our community, called Her Circle, is happy to help with that.
High five, friend. We've enjoyed hanging out with you. Follow us so you're the first to know when we drop a new episode.
If you've enjoyed your time with us, let us know by leaving a review. We always love hearing from you. Until next time, stay true to you.